Guys, welcome back. We're doing now a breakdown of a super fight that just happened between Gordan Ryan and Vagner Rocha. Of course, you guys know Gordan Ryan's pretty good at no-gi. He's been winning a lot of stuff. Won the 80cc open class, 80cc weight class that he was in. Vagner Rocha is also no one shy to the no-gi scene. He's won a lot of tournaments himself, comes with a really big no-gi and gi background. So during the match, you see a good scramble. You see a lot of simple, actually fundamental jiu-jitsu, which was great to watch. And you see them executed by these high-level black belts. So we're going to break down some of the movements, some of the highlights of the fight. We're not going to go through everything, but some of the stuff that really stood out into some of the basic techniques. I hope you guys enjoyed, okay? The first technique is very simple. I really enjoy this technique because it's really basic, but a lot of successful high-level black belts do this technique, and it's the one leg X, right? The single leg X. It was really, really cool to watch. The setup, as Vagner was up, Gordan Ryan just shot the single leg X. He used the hook behind the hamstring, cupped the back of the ankle. So now his opponent couldn't step back, and then he shot the leg through and immediately went to one leg X here. And he even didn't reap, right? He didn't have to reap. He just connected this way, cupped the back of his opponent's ankle, hipped in, and used it to get the basic dump from here. Technical stand up, and he was up to pass. I'll show it again on this angle. So in his position, he's already motioning to one strong side. He hooks behind the knee, grabs the ankle, shoots the one leg X, right? Because of his hip strength and his power, he is a pretty strong fighter. He's able to hip in into the left, which is the angle of his opponent. Cups the back of the ankle, right? And instead of going for a leg lock, technical stand up, and then he was able to pass. The next big movement in the match between Gordan and Vagner was one of Gordan Ryan's passes. I really like what he did because guess what? He was doing basic jiu-jitsu. And I really like to see basic jiu-jitsu at the high levels because as I tell my students, basic jiu-jitsu is the foundation of all jiu-jitsu, and it's kind of where people are really, really struggling with. It's their journey in the beginning. So if you can establish a good foundation in the beginning, you can have a really, really good jiu-jitsu career, really good jiu-jitsu journey. So let's talk about the half guard pass, okay? I'm going to show it from one side and then turn him over to the other side. So one thing Gordan Ryan did very well, he answered the half guard here, heavy shoulder pressure, and when Vagner tried to come up and frame, he kept trying to trap this arm underneath, and he did an excellent job at that. And the reason Vagner was doing that because he was trying to clear the crossface. Once he cleared the crossface, he can fight. Because the crossface was so deep and he was pushing him, Gordan was able to force this position. Now, it didn't happen right away. If you study the fight, it happened over a few minutes, right, where he was really grinding and pushing Vagner's head this way. From here, basic half guard, fundamental pass. He checked the hip. He used his elbow to pry that knee open, or that leg open, using his knee to come up. And then he grabbed the bottom, the top of the leg, pushed it down, and went straight to mount. It was like a combination between technical mount and full mount because Vagner still had the pressure here, all right? A lot of times I teach my students not to do this if my opponent is able to clear and control my wrist with the other hand. Yeah, like this, right? So a lot of times I tell my students not to. I think this case, it was okay because he was able to crush and isolate. So now it's hard for my opponent to reach this way. Now I can come over and go right into mount. And I'm going to show it now this angle as well. So half guard from this side, he was able to establish heavy crossface. Vagner was using his frames. Once he crushed the frames this way, he was able to control the hips, bring his knee up, push down, and go straight into mount. And that was the second position that really stood out because it really showed the importance of fundamental jiu-jitsu, and it was a good way to see it at the high level. Another position, guys, that Gordan Ryan did really well was his back control. This was something that I saw throughout the match. He mainly had back throughout the whole match, and it was using fundamentals, principles that just were so clean. Honestly, Vagner Rocha had a hard time just getting out of the back. And so we're going to talk about that position just a little bit and how he was able to retain the back, how he was able to force him back down when he would stand up. And he used a little bit of some folk style wrestling to kind of control him, but a lot of it was mostly jiu-jitsu, all right? So when he did get his back, Gordan Ryan's pretty tall, so he's able to bring his leg across and triangle his legs this way. Because I'm shorter, I have shorter legs, so it's harder for someone like me to do them. But if you're taller, this can be really good for your game. So that was one thing he did. Another thing he did was controlling, as he would try to choke him, he would actually go for double unders, and double unders is great because even though you can't choke them right away, you can actually control them more because you have double unders. This is great for no-gi. This is really great for gi as well. This is really great for MMA because now I can control my opponent no matter where he goes, and I can switch to my triangle, right? Or I can switch to my basic back take, all right? So that was one thing. Another option from this position was when Vagner would come stand up. So he'd have one hook, and then he would throw in a half Nelson. The half Nelson is basically a wrestling move to try to get your opponent back onto the mat, but he would use this to keep him low, right? So instead of just holding on to the back where my opponent could stand up, exactly, right? He would use this position to keep him down. See, as I keep him down, I can re-hook my hook, and I can start attacking again. So it's a really good option that I saw. And then finally, he showed a really good position that was really famous when Henzo did it in his MMA fight. So please come up. Where he had the double unders, right? And then he hooked this foot right here. As he hooked this foot, he's got the double unders, he's putting shoulder pressure behind the lat, and then he's falling forward to the same side to re-hook the back and work his way back into that control. Let's do it on the other side. This way. So again, he's in this position, he hooks, right? As he hooks this leg, he's forcing his shoulder right behind the lat, so he's able to take him down this way. And even though my opponent's really high, I can work my way up and start attacking. Of course, I want my choking side on this side to block him from escaping, but Gordan Ryan is so tall that he was able to not only control the double unders, but use his legs to trap Vagner Rocha. This was one of the things that stood out, was his back control, his ability to hold him with the half Nelson, and then his ability to bring him back to the mat every time he stood up. And just really staying conservative with the double unders rather than the traditional seatbelt grip was huge in this fight. Okay guys, another position that stood out was actually Gordan Ryan's leg lock defense in the 50-50. A lot of people talk about his leg lock attacks, but nobody really talks about his leg lock defense. Leg lock defense is so important because it's fundamental and it teaches you how to stay calm, give you that confidence, so then when you learn the defense, you can do the attacks as well. He did something really great that I think a lot of people didn't really realize, is his defense was similar not only to the heel hook, but for the straight ankle lock, okay? So he was in 50-50. Y'all know 50-50 can be really annoying. It's also known as a stalling technique. That's why I don't really personally like it a whole lot, but it is very effective and it's very hard to defend sometimes. Gordan Ryan saw the heel hook opportunity. The problem with the inside heel hook is as my opponent heel hooks my foot, a lot of people try to spin and come out, which is definitely one of the defenses. What Gordan Ryan did was he started hand fighting. He started trying to get his heel cleared because it's very hard to heel hook from this position. Unless I don't have very flexible knees and joints, then sure. But to really finish the heel hook from here, my opponent has to really turn while my body stays this way. So you see this attack a lot from the 50-50. What Gordan Ryan did was pretty simple, and actually very simple, very basic. He hand fought enough to where Vagner could not turn all the way to his left, Gordan's right. So as my opponent tries to turn, he held on here. Once his foot was clear from the heel hook, he stood up and got it flat. There was even a point where he was down and his foot was flat. By keeping his foot flat, Vagner cannot get the heel hook, right? He cannot get the heel. If he tries to get the heel, my foot is flat on the floor, it's not floating. If my foot starts coming off, it is now floating. Now my opponent could attack toe hold or heel hook here. So as soon as he cleared, he kept it flat. Once it was flat and Vagner saw he couldn't get the heel hook, Gordan stood up. Now all his base is straight and all his weight's forward. He's not fleeing, he's not spinning, he's actually putting weight here, and he was able to control the shins and bring them all the way down, then step on Vagner, and then start his passing from there. He can get out of the 50-50 and find really good success. This was a really good breakdown of this position because it works the same for those who can't do heel hooks. So if you're ever doing a jiu-jitsu match and you like to go for ankle locks, or you have trouble defending ankle locks, this is one way to defend them. So if you have time, really study this position, work the 50-50 defense, work it, even if you're not allowed to do heel hooks at your school, learn how to really defend the straight ankle lock, doing the same principles. And make sure that when you do go to the 50-50, that you keep your opponent from rolling to the opposite side. That was another key. If Vagner was able to get the heel hook to the other side, match could have been over, didn't matter who you were. Instead, he kept him to this side, so all his weight is to his left. So now my opponent, right, cannot go to his left. Right, try to go to the left. Exactly. So then I palm basically the bottom of my foot to the mat. So my foot is flat on the mat. As it's flat, I can now stand up and put all my pressure forward. Now I'm in 50-50. Grab the shins, push all the way down. Even if my opponent has really good resistance, doesn't matter because gravity's on my side. Now I can step on the stomach and start coming back this way and start working my pass. So this was a really good match to break down, and this was one of the things that stood out was his heel hook defense and 50-50 counter defense and escape even from that position. Okay guys, and finally the last position we want to study is of course the submission finish. Gordan Ryan was able to pass the half guard to secure the position, isolate the shoulder, do a Kimura trap while putting him in the triangle setup and getting the submission, okay? So there's a real good way of how he chained the pass to a submission. So come this way, please. All right, so from this side, guys, he's trying to pass his half guard. One thing he was able to do was control his opponent's arm. Of course, Vagner was really, really high, right? So as he was high, he was able to pass this leg through. So his left leg is passed through, and he was able to set up the Kimura trap. As he has a Kimura trap, he's able to sit back and free the left leg, and he's able to actually create more leverage to pull his right leg out. So when he slaps this angle, he recreates this angle. So now he has like a reverse triangle, or rather a traditional triangle with the legs the other way. Here, Fernie is super tight. If he went for a traditional triangle, he wouldn't be able to have the leverage, especially with the Kimura. And then look, because of the leverage in the angle, I just have to go a little bit up to get the Kimura.